Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. We're continuing through the book and we come to David and Goliath, a story that has become a metaphor for just any kind of an underdog. But I think that's actually part of the problem. We are missing what this is really all about. So let's jump right in. First of all, we are misinterpreting the story so badly most of the time. We see this as like a little kid with a slingshot killing a giant. That is not what this is all about. The first key thing to realize is that a sling is not a toy, it's a serious weapon. This is not Dennis the Menace with his pocket slingshot. These are serious grade weapons. They were the heavy artillery of the day, often used against armed infantry. So that's what the underdog in this story is packing. But then let's take a closer look at this underdog. The only thing we can say for sure about his age is that he was under 20, because we know he was too young to be in the army, and that's the cutoff. But at the same time, he was old enough to be sent out to the front lines, so he's probably not a little kid. More than likely, he's a teenager, somewhere mid to late teens. When he gets there, he sees a giant. 1 Samuel 17:4 says, "Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall." There has been debate for thousands of years over exactly how tall this guy really was. My point is, it doesn't really matter. What matters is he was a big dude. He was big enough that he was terrifyingly big to any of the other soldiers. He was oversized, bigger than they were. That's what matters. Don't get hung up on exactly how tall he was. Because David didn't get hung up on that. Everybody else was just saying, "Oh dude, this big guy, he's threatening us." But David didn't see the big strong guy. He just saw this bully who was like berating the forces of Israel. In verse 26 he says, "Who is this Philistine anyway that he's allowed to defy the armies of the living God?" It's basically, guys, is God on our side or not? Let someone get this dude. And if no one else is going to do it, I'll do it. Talking like that pretty soon gets him standing in front of the king. Starting in verse 33, you get, "Don't be ridiculous," Saul replied. But David persisted. "I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats," he said, which is a strange way to make your argument, until he continues. "When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I grab it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine. For he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine." Now, for starters, this is already showing David is not a little kid. He's going up against lions and bears. This is not a one-time event. He's explaining it like this is his standard protocol for how to handle that. And oh, by the way, in Hebrew, the club isn't there. It says nothing about him having any kind of weapon. No sling, no club. I don't know if he's doing it with his bare hands. I'm not sure having a nice heavy stick in your hand makes me feel a whole lot more capable of taking on a bear or a lion. But David is no pushover. But don't take that too far. David is also not the cocky one saying, "Well, I can kill these animals, I can kill that giant." David the whole time credits God. You can bet the first time he faced a lion or a bear, he was scared out of his mind, but he survived and he knew that God kept him alive. And the next time he did it and he trusted God to keep him going. And it's gotten to the point that he just knows that God will protect him and God will help him do these things. And that's what gives him the boldness to step to Goliath. There might be an aspect in here that everybody else was seeing Goliath as way bigger than a normal soldier, but David's seeing Goliath as about the same size as a lion or a bear. And so it's like, yeah, I've faced things like that before. Let's do this. But all Goliath sees is a kid coming at him with a stick. He's super offended. He yells at David and is like, "Come over here. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to feed your flesh to the wild animals." And in verse 45, David replied to the Philistine, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, whom you have defied." In verse 47 he says, "This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us." You can read that as David's own taunt back to Goliath, but I see it as a final warning. David saying, "You're not fighting me. You're fighting God, and it's not going to go well for you." And so you famously get verse 50, David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. David was not fighting with a sling. He was fighting with the power of the living God. And that's what's so great about this story, because that makes David no different than you and me. You don't have to be the person who's taking on wild animals with your bare hands, because it wasn't doing that that made David special. It was simply trusting God. It was knowing that God can deliver him from those animals. God can deliver him from an armed soldier too. It doesn't really make a difference. It's God. And he's the deciding factor. All we have to do is trust him. David didn't even have a Bible to read like we do. He didn't have the resources we do. He didn't have the Holy Spirit living within him like we do today. And he was able to deliver his entire nation from slavery. My goodness, what could we do? What could God do through us if we would just step out and let him use us like David did? That's the lesson of this story.